and safe grazing reserves for pastoralists with access to potable water, cold chain storage, schools, lodging, veterinary services, and training of modern production methods. We also need to have forest reserves which could be preserved or re-established, as well as engage forest guards to secure forests against criminals, kidnappers, and bandits with our current experiences in the country. Development of traditional and innovative sources of finance, including intervention funds, diaspora investment, franchising, fintech, among others, and several risk management products such as farmer-centric insurance products for each value chain to hedge risk, that is to minimize the risk associated with that. Scale up rainwater harvesting systems to reduce flooding of farms while conserving water for dry season farming. It was recognized that there was need to ensure that farming in Nigeria is all year round, and by so doing, we can also have as much as we can from nature in terms of our food production system. Under the long-term measures, private sector and research institute partnership and linkages to address capacity gaps revealed by capacity audit. You will remember that under the short term, we said we need to also undertake capacity audit. So the long-term solution is to also be able to have the private sector and research linkages to be able to address the capacity audit gap, including increasing the availability of farm equipment, irrigation services, and deploying innovations and precision farming. We need to reform the land tenure system for easy access to land for youth and women, ensuring safety and ease of reach to farmlands that are allocated. The reform should facilitate both access to land and ownership of the land. Development of more resilient seed varieties, that is, seed varieties that guarantee longer shelf life and the ability to withstand the rigors of harvesting, transportation, and storage. Recovery and restoration of various food stocks and other aquatics in rivers, brooklands, and streams, as well as tree crops in the forest. The last set of recommendations under the food production system and inputs include reduction of post-harvest losses through enhanced and improved storage and processing mechanisms, quality value addition through processing to improve taste, shelf life, packaging, and quality of food, including development of preservation technologies for perishable crops to reduce losses, as well as conversion of food waste to valuable products at domestic level. The revision of agricultural curricula in our tertiary institutions to include greater field learning and increase attraction to the youth as a livelihood. You will discover, or you will all recall, that the impression of the farmer in this country is one that looks like somebody who is very, very famished, very poor, with tattered clothes. I know you would like to look like that. And that's why we need to also do something that will make agriculture very attractive and for our youth to be able to also undertake agriculture as a means of livelihood. Creation of internship opportunities for both in-school and out-of-school youth to facilitate the development of hands-on skills on food system-related livelihoods. Improve and expand rail transportation across the country to enhance farm products transportation. You will discover that most of our farm crops, particularly that have to travel from the northern part of Nigeria, Sokoto, name them, Kano to Lagos, will take several days before they eventually land, and substantial part of these products will have been destroyed during the process of transportation. Automation of food value chain to facilitate traceability of products. We now move to recommendations that are related to storage and distribution. Forming private partnerships to address infrastructural deficits, including increased investment in storage facilities, alternative sources of power. You know, power has been a major source, a major problem in the country. That's why level where you buy food crops that you want to use for a period of 1 month. For those of us who are salary earners and we earn our salary in this country on a monthly basis, that is if it comes monthly. Otherwise, those that get it once in 6 months or once in 18 months, you need to store your food. But power makes it very, very difficult. Social amenities, cold chain logistics, cold storage transportation, and construction of rural roads to facilitate easy access to farming communities and enable shorter turnaround for off-taking activities. And you can imagine the market women that deals in vegetables. If for whatever reason she cannot dispose of them within 24 to 48 hours, most of them will go bad because there are no means to be able to store them within the market system. Decentralized National Grain Reserve Services, establish functional commodity markets and agro insurance schemes to cater for shocks from failures due to disasters and other emergencies such as flooding, fire, drought, COVID-19 pandemic, among others. The issue with processing and packaging. The recommendations around that are producers and marketers of micronutrient premix should ensure the quality and stability of micronutrients in premixes throughout the value chain. All premixes are currently imported. Hence, local production should be targeted as a long-term solution for availability and access to quality premixes. Our food certification program, the last scale certification program, relied heavily on the availability of premix. So research around local production of premixes should commence immediately. The private sector and research institute partnership and linkages to develop packaging and other solutions to ensure that micronutrients in fortified foods do not get lost during storage or display and repackaging at the retail level. Partnership will also target the development of packaging materials that will enhance or increase shelf life of food products in general. Production of blended foods from local food sources for prevention and management of moderate acute malnutrition should also be targeted. You will recall that currently most of our efforts in management of moderate acute malnutrition are also related to importation of blends that are imported, like corn syrup being blend. The processing and packaging continue. Support farmers to cultivate the different varieties of biofortified crops and use of biofortified commodities as industrial raw materials or enriched products. These are some of the other ways we can use some of our biofortified crops. Research institutes to improve the nutrient value of certain crops through biofortification and make certain crops available to farmers. We need to also reduce post-harvest losses through establishment of microprocessing hubs, prioritizing premium processors to reduce post-harvest losses. Processing hubs should include investment in production of dried foods and attractive packaging to make these dried foods appealing to children. Furthermore, increase access to solar technology and low-cost mobile energy sources and technology for safe drying of foods and other processing needs. Private sector conversion of agricultural waste to value-added products, including the production of eco-friendly bags and packaging materials to reduce ecosystem degradation, coupled with policies that encourage the use of eco-friendly bags. With the retail and marketing, we need to create physical spaces and schedules for farmers, especially youth and women, to sell their products so that they do not have to resort to mobile markets that are unsustainable and offer poor practice. Markets should be upgraded to include cold rooms for fresh foods, vegetables, and other perishables to reduce food waste. Our food environment recommendation around that include we need to scale up food safety practices and enforcement of regulation, including daily sanitation of wet markets, education and training of street food vendors, and food businesses on basic nutrition and food safety, as well as ensuring fair practices in food handling and in the food chain. Regulators should be deployed to monitor and supervise food production, processing, and marketing, including the control and use of insecticide, pesticide in the cultivation, processing, and preservation of foods and food crops. And education before regulators approach should be adopted. We see situations whereby our regulators are very, very quick to arrest on the basis of the fact that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. But we need to also enforce, we need to educate our marketing. We see a lot of underhand and undercut in the processing of fruits and vegetables. Vegetables and fruits that are not mature are harvested, transcribed, and sold. They have their own implications. And some of the processes they adopt also use processes that are also very injurious to our health. Inclusion of traditional local vegetables for preparation of meals, for school feeding programs, hospitals, military and other public institutions. This will also facilitate the consumption of our local traditional food crops that are indigenous in different parts of this country. Mandatory food labeling, including front of pack labeling and regulations on products, advertisement to minimize misinformation, false claims, and labeling fraud. Nigeria is full of misinformation, particularly what you see on the label, and whatever it is even being marketed. And these are some of the things that our regulators should also be able to save the consumer. Nigeria has also the Federal Consumer Protection Agency. They should be up and doing. They do not need to wait for people to come and report before they go into action to sanitize the market space. There are other individual factors and recommendations include we need to increase job opportunities for women and youth by developing technical or vocational training linked to service demanded by major value chain and or processors. We need to strengthen and scale up conditional cash transfer programs and integrate livelihood development activities into such programs. We need to scale up appropriate and adequate nutrition education programs towards increased consumption of nutrient-rich, diversified diets, including biofortified foods, reduced household food waste, as well as for producers to deliver nutritious food products. Such education should be provided through multiple settings, including health facilities, workplaces, schools, faith-based gatherings, and communities, adopting both conventional and contemporary channels. The long-term actions linked to individual factors include embedding nutrition education in school curriculum, enhance positive orientation and modify children's eating behaviors, consumer education using resources such as the food consumption table and food-based dietary guidelines to help in adjusting consumption pattern, strengthening technical and vocational training with deliberate incentives for youth and women, digitalization of nutrition education through games, apps, infographics, and social media to foster behavioral change communication. Related to consumer behavior, it was recommended that we should establish and scale up household level processing and preservation techniques to increase household storage of food during periods of surplus, minimize food waste, and build household food stocks. We're related to diet. We need to expand and improve social protection programs such as the homegrown school feeding programs and other food aid programs, including creation of food banks that collects overproduction, excesses, and close to expired foods for distribution to poor communities and for humanitarian emergencies as well. Our recent experience with the COVID-19 is a point we need also to reflect very much upon. The absence of adequate storage or reserves resulted into government and private sector going to the same marketplace with the ordinary Nigerians to buy up what is available. And that is the basis for one of the steep increases we are currently experiencing with increase in the food price, apart from the herders farmers clashes on farmlands. The use of schools as a key environment for delivering healthy, safe, and sustainable diet. Now, recommendations related to climate change drivers of food systems. The completion of the national framework for the application of climate services, adoption of climate-smart agricultural practices and eco-friendly systems of land development, protection of land from erosion by planting trees and application of organic manure instead of chemical fertilizers. Access to better crop varieties is approved, paths to higher yields and income, with biotechnology showing particular promise. We should not be shy to embrace biotechnology. It was observed during the discussion that our production system lags behind our population growth. So in order to be able to also be able to meet up with our population growth, if you cannot control our population growth, at least we should be able to produce what we eat. Building capacity of local communities to engage in agroforestry, in nature-based production, raising seedlings, and maintaining plantations and forming forest management committees to maintain our forest. That is, if our bandits, kidnappers, and rustlers are dislodged from the forest. Mapping and classification of agricultural lands in states for production, processing, and distribution of crops and livestock. The other recommendations related to climate change as drivers of our food system: collaboration between government, households, NGOs, and research organizations to take action on effects of climate change. We also need to undertake policy reforms and enabling acts to ensure preservation of forest reserves, green belts, wetlands, watersheds, and other critical ecosystems to avoid flooding, help irrigation, and recharge the aquifers for improved food production during adverse weather conditions. Public-private partnerships on climate early warning system to monitor, track, report on potential climate stresses in states. Partnerships should include meteorological agencies and should incorporate information dissemination to the grassroots through the radio, other media, and the National Orientation Agency. Income growth and distribution drivers of food systems. We need to establish inclusive platforms for vulnerable groups, including women and youth, in policy planning and implementation processes. We need to create index of financial institutions that contribute in funding of smallholder farms and small-scale enterprises to stimulate healthy competition amongst financial institutions and impact investors, thereby increasing funding facilities available to smallholder farmers. We are very much aware of the anchor borrowers programs and the various lending opportunities to farmers, especially through the banking institutions. But how many of our smallholder farmers have been able to access these funds? Not to talk of the ones, the several millions and billions that are made available by the central bank. Activities can include assessment of lessons learned from the Fund for Agricultural Financing in Nigeria projects, and to enable us scale it up. Improve farmers' access to agricultural credit with interest rates at a concessionary rate, subsidy to farmers on agricultural inputs and processing equipment. Some of the discussions also centered that rather than giving more money in terms to farmers, smallholder farmers, we should give them products so that we can be sure that the products are given to them are actually used rather than diverting the money that is provided to them for other purposes. Provision of insurance services to farmers, including smallholder farmers and women producers, thereby facilitating farmers' subscription for insurance and regulation of insurance provider so that claims are honored adequately, promptly, and efficiently. This is particularly important. The risk system in farming is so enormous, and a number of people that go into farming activities without the added protection through insurance will drive some of them out, particularly when you go into farming and you farm in a wetland and there's flooding. Whatever you have planted will be lost. And if you have insurance, at least you have an opportunity to recoup some of these losses. There's need for agro-logistics support, finance and risk mitigation to empower buying for farmers. Thank you. I've mentioned about the issue of population growth and migration drivers of food system. We need to improve physical security of lives and property, including farmlands and transportation system. We all know what our roads are now in terms of security. Local vigilante groups can be strengthened to provide first-line defense while requesting for reinforcement by former security agencies. I think this is already being implemented, and that's why we have the Omotola, is this Eastern Security Network or Igubiabu, and then the other networks that we have in the part of the country. Government should also strengthen the security networks to recover farmlands from bandits, establish conflict early warning system. Let's quickly move to socio-cultural factor because I have 1 or 2 minutes left. We develop and scale up the consumption of traditional vegetables. We've mentioned that the breeding to convert more underutilized traditional vegetables, research institutes and the government need to strengthen formal and informal seed system for traditional crops and collect, protect traditional crops and their wild relatives in gene banks to safeguard diversity. Incentivize private sector to create business solutions around providing healthy alternatives to consumers. The final one is to talk about the political and leadership drivers of the strengthening the capacity of existing food systems related research institutions. We need to review and revise the Nigeria agricultural policy to be an all-inclusive, that is, to include youth, women, and all the vulnerable groups in processing, in the content, and ensure that food and nutrition system transformation is central in all policy. Decentralize and fast-track registration of food products. Legislate to discourage production of unhealthy foods, such as imposition of sugar levy and taxes, incentivize producers to invest in the production of nutritious value chain, such as tax incentives for affordable healthy foods. Development of standards by regulatory authorities for agricultural machinery, imported and local production, to prevent the proliferation of inefficient machinery in the country. Development of a nutrient profiling system to guide food labeling, nutrition and health claims and marketing restrictions. Facilitate the passage of the Right to Food Bill and implementation of the Act. Government policies should ensure that everyone has equal right and access to adequate food and social protection. We should ensure fiscal sustainability of all sectors in national budgetary allocation. Civil society organizations should also hold industry and government accountable. This is an area where Nutrition Society is particularly required to hold government accountable on mandatory food fortification and facilitate food systems related awareness, creation, and behavior change. Development of a subnational, that is state level food system, this dashboard
that gather data about food system characteristics into one place so that the food system of each state can be easily identified and transformative actions can be easily prioritized and implemented. Establishment of a national food system transformation support facility. As part of the food support facility, feedback mechanisms will be developed through which food systems transformation services providers, including extension agents, technology hub officers, and other implementers can engage with national coordinator office, request technical assistance and high-level advocacy, highlights roadblocks to success among other actors. Finally, a harmonized data gathering, storage, management, and sharing platform should be created. As part of the support facility, data should capture all aspects of the food system, including information about vulnerable groups, and must be linked and comprehensive from primary sources at the household level and LGA level through to the state and National Bureau of Statistics, such that it informs national and state planning and budgeting processes. I want to thank you for your attention. These are the 79 recommendations that came out of the dialogue that was held in Nigeria. Thank you very much.